I have a secret to confess, and I need you to listen very carefully. I want to take you back to how my nightmare actually began. It didn't start with a scream. It didn't start with a shattered window or a raised fist. No, it started with something entirely silent. I remember the exact moments I signed my own death warrants. That's the truth of it. You see, the weapon that started it all, it wasn't violent. It didn't even look like a weapon at all. In fact, it looked exactly like a tear. Pity. It was a cold afternoon, the kind where the fluorescent lights in the room hummed just a little too loudly. I looked across that space and saw a boy staring at the floor. His shoulders were slumped, and he looked entirely defeated by the world. And in my chest, a dangerous electric spark ignited. It wasn't attraction. It was something far more lethal. It was pity. Anonymous confession. Fighting a war. Now, you won't see my face or know my name in this explainer, and that's a strategic choice. By staying anonymous, I am completely stripping my abuser of his power. I'm reclaiming my voice over the secrets he tried so hard to bury, all while fighting for justice and fighting to secure a safe future for my kids, because they are the anchor that keeps me grounded in reality whenever those memories flood back. So, welcome to my story. The target and the bait. We're going back to high school in Poland, year 2012. To really understand the trap here, we have to examine the bait. We need to look at this like a detective reviewing a cold case. Let's clinically contrast our two subjects. On the left side, we have the target. That was me. I was full of life, radiating this kind of frantic, problem-solving energy. I grew up in a massive, bustling house with 7 siblings. And you don't survive that kind of environment without developing an unusually high tolerance for chaos. It literally wired my brain to prioritize the pack above all else. I had a relentless, primal instinct to put the needs of others before my own. Then on the right side, we have the bait. He would isolate himself on purpose, intentionally sitting just outside the circle of laughing teenagers. When we finally spoke, his words were just dripping with manufactured sorrow. He spun these elaborate tales of how misunderstood he was, how the world had dealt him this cruel hand. He presented himself as a drowning soul, right there in those high school corridors. The master scanner. We often think predators just jump out from the shadows, but the truth is actually much more calculated. When a predator walks into a room, they don't just look around, they evaluate. They are actively searching for the absolute perfect victim to fulfill their very specific needs. This is what we call a master scanner. It's a predator who instinctively senses and targets an individual's overpowering vulnerability and their need to heal, mend, or save others. He was a master scanner. He walked into that school, looked at me, and instinctively sensed that vulnerability. He recognized my overpowering need to save. I can still remember the smell of the cheap floor wax, the scratching of chalk on the board. He would drop these heavy sighs and cast long, wounded glances in my direction. He used that manufactured sorrow to perfectly draw out my fatal flaw, which was compassion. I sat there, my heart just breaking for him, feeling this physical tightening in my throat. I thought I was offering a lifeline. I honestly thought my love and patience could be the cure. But here is the chilling reality. Narcissism doesn't want a cure. It wants a host. The anatomy of pity. Let's break down how this actually works. Society teaches us, it teaches you, that empathy is our greatest virtue. But we really need to examine the anatomy of pity here. Because in the hands of a predator, your empathy is simply a weapon that they turn right back against you. My natural instincts, the absolute best parts of me, were used to build a golden cage. Let's meticulously walk through his calculated 4-step process. Step 1, present as broken. Every single time he acted out, he would just collapse into the role of the victim, whispering, head in his hands, claiming everyone abandons him. Step 2, feed narratives of being misunderstood. He fed me this grand lie that I was the only person in the world who truly understood him. Step 3, weaponize compassion. He didn't actually want my help to heal. Not at all. He wanted my empathy as fuel. And finally, step 4, paint the golden cage. What I believed was an act of profound support was actually a methodical process of him taking complete control over my life. The bars of that cage, they were painted with my own good intentions. And absolutely nobody warned me about these fatal societal lies. The adults in our lives, they just saw a sweet high school romance. Just a good girl settling down a troubled boy. Our culture romanticizes this dynamic so much. We're told that empathy is our greatest virtue. We're told that women can literally love the demons out of men. We are told to be the emotional sponges for their toxicity. But let me be clear, it is a fatal, systemic lie, and it completely sets us up for destruction. The crime scene blueprint. I really don't cry over him anymore. When I look back at that naive high school girl now, I do it with the clear, detached eyes of a homicide detective examining a crime scene. I can see exactly how he dismantled my defenses. We have the blueprint of his abuse laid out right in front of us. Trace this timeline with me. It begins in 2012, with that initial meeting in Poland. Over the next few months, the subtle isolation crept in. He made me feel like I was his savior, a title I foolishly wore like a badge of honor. I swallowed all my unease. I actively ignored my gut screaming at me to run because, to me, leaving meant abandoning a damaged creature. I thought the absolute worst of his brokenness was just sadness. I had no idea that his sadness was a carefully crafted mask, concealing profound rage. Which brings us to the climax. One freezing night on New Year's Eve. The balcony. I wouldn't see his true face until that night. Until I found myself standing out on a freezing balcony. I was looking down into the dark, and a sudden, undeniable realization washed over me. The boy I had tried so desperately to save was fully prepared to destroy me. But you know what? That is exactly where the blueprint fails, because I am no longer the victim. I am the strategist. Every single move I make now is calculated. It is deliberate. I am building an impenetrable fortress for my children, ensuring they will never, ever have to breathe the toxic air he tried to suffocate us in. He thought he found a host, but he created a warrior. So I have to ask, have you ever stayed too long because you thought you could fix someone? If you have, you are not alone. Let's build an army of survivors who see the truth, who instantly recognize the mask answers. Share this explainer and join our community. Next time, I'm taking you back to that balcony. Stay safe and never let them use your light to feed their darkness.